Imagine you lead one of the largest criminal organizations in the world, and you think you and your guards are in need of a bit of training. Who would you hire? Well, that's precisely the problem Daniel Kinahan faced, and being the Daniel Kinahan, he didn't just hire a nobody. With the piles of cash he had accumulated from illegal activities, Kinahan could easily afford the absolute best out there, and this is what he did. In this video, we'll be telling you about the time Daniel Kinahan got paranoid and hired a former member of the British Special Forces to train him and his guards. Before we talk about why Daniel Kinahan hired a British Special Forces member, let's first briefly talk about who the Kinahans are. If you have been a long-time viewer of my channel, you already know that the Kinahans are one of the largest, if not the largest, criminal organizations in the world. The leaders of this notorious criminal empire are Christy Kinahan and Daniel Kinahan, both of whom have a $5 million bounty on their head. Being highly wanted criminals, both of these gang leaders are on the run, though they have found a safe haven in recent years. For a long time, Christy and Daniel Kinahan found refuge in Spain. From there, they brought the previously island-based cartel to international heights, and from this, they got rich. Rich enough to buy their place in Dubai, despite being highly wanted by the Irish and Spanish authorities. Here they could live a luxurious life and keep operating their criminal enterprise. Accompanying Christy and Daniel Kinahan were their close accomplices, Rafael Imperiale and Ridwan Taghi, who are both prominent figures in the crime world. Even though Daniel Kinahan had all he needed to live a comfortable life, there was one thing missing: a certainty of security. Daniel Kinahan is a huge crime figure on an international scale, so naturally he has a lot of people to watch out for. Not just rival gang members, but also the authorities, who are constantly on the hunt to get him. All this made Daniel very paranoid. This was especially true back when he operated his organization from Spain. He felt like he and his men, who were tasked with protecting Daniel and his family, lacked the required training needed to tackle dangerous situations. Deadly car chases, gunfights, raids, you know, the kinds of dangers Daniel was prone to facing as a high-profile criminal being sought by various authorities and enemies. Daniel knew he had to find a specialist for this job. After all, he had the money he needed. Seeing as the Kinahans are thought to have acquired wealth amounting to around $1 billion from their illegal activities. Daniel chose to hire a former member of the British Special Forces who had previously set up a firm that offered covert operation services to clients. The British Special Forces are the elites of Britain's armed forces, so no doubt this person that Daniel had hired was the cream of the crop. And with that, the training began. The expert began training Daniel and his men soon after. He arranged for shooting practices so they could learn how to properly handle different guns and shoot like a professional in real combat situations. He also taught them martial arts so they could hold their own in hand-to-hand combat. Another thing the expert trained Kinahan and his crew on was counter-surveillance. Additionally, they were taught how to disguise themselves if needed and how to act covertly. A key part of the training was teaching Daniel and his men how to identify when they were being chased by a car. They were then taught how to escape in such a situation by losing the chase. For all intents and purposes, the training went really well, except for the fact that they were not as hidden as they thought. You see, the notorious cartel boss knew that the authorities were always hot on his trail, so Kinahan had arranged for these training regimes to be done away from prying eyes. But as it turns out, it was all to no avail, since the Spanish authorities had been onto him for quite a while. They were surveilling him and watching his every move. Most importantly, they had tapped the phones of Kinahan and his men. So as the training started, the Spanish authorities could listen to their gang members talking to each other on their phones. This helped them figure out exactly what was going on. However, after listening in on Kinahan and his men as they trained for quite a while, suddenly everything went quiet. The authorities could not hear a thing. Why? Well, as part of the training, the experts had Kinahan and his men switch over to walkie-talkies for communication. This was part of the training to teach them how to stay under the radar while communicating with each other. The radio silence was only put in place for some time though. Soon after, everyone was back on their phones, and the authorities could once again spy on the gang members without them realizing. The training sessions with the former British Special Forces members probably provided great results for Daniel Kinahan and his associates. They got to learn martial arts and counter-surveillance. They also went through shooting training. For criminals, those are pretty great skills to have, but Daniel and his crew clearly fell behind on the whole covert thing. After all, they were being watched by the Spanish authorities all this time, and they had no clue. So the task failed successfully, I guess. There were clearly many positives to the training, as it made the crime boss even more well protected than he was already in Dubai. And with former British Special Services members on his payroll, Kinahan can have a much better trained army of gangsters at his disposal to get out of sticky situations, whether that be a raid by the police or an attack by a rival gang. Also, as it happens, Daniel is not the only one who has elite soldiers on his payroll for training purposes. Kinahan's close associate, Ridouan Taghiz, happens to have them too. Ridouan Taghiz is a member of the Moroccan Dutch Mafia, and he is also pretty high up on the list of the most wanted criminals in the world. Taghiz was also found to have hired a highly decorated Dutch commando working for him. He had hired the commando to train his men as a way to make his criminal organization stronger. When Taghiz was caught and placed in prison, he talked about breaking out of the prison with the help of some Navy SEAL-type men. He was probably talking about the personnel trained by the said Dutch commando. As the net closes in around the Kinahan cartel, Daniel Kinahan may find himself in a similar situation as Ridouan Taghiz. Authorities from around the world want him caught, and the $5 million bounty is not helping either. As the police ramp up their efforts to catch Kinahan and his accomplices to bring down the cartel, the training from the former British Special Service member may not be enough to keep Daniel safe. But for how long can he really avoid the authorities? Only time will tell. As of now, having a former Special Services member ready to train Daniel's crew is definitely increasing the Kinahan cartel's strength. Do you think Kinahan made a smart move hiring a former British Special Services member for training his men? Let us know in the comment section below. That's it for today's video. Please like and subscribe for more content like this in the future. Until next time, stay safe.